welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Open mic number 253. So, hope everyone's doing okay today, wherever you may be located in the world. Was able to get Exhibit 2, which was talked about. Jay was here. He remembers. We talked about it's in the filing document. Exhibit 2 is mentioned multiple times. There are other documents filed, just so this is clear in this case, but many of them are just summons. It's pointless to get it. You're being summoned, It's so we didn't get everything. It's unnecessary. So if anybody wants it, if you have a Pacer account, you can easily find this stuff. It's not hard. Anyway, before we get going, Jay, thanks for joining me. How are you tonight?
Very well, thanks. Nearly missed it, but I managed to get you in time.
Heck yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Looks like we have a lot of our usual suspects. I see JD, 3 Revs, Goya, Passive Bear, Nan's Life, Jazz Nest, Pete Moth. I'm sure a few more will be drifting in as we go. Before we get rolling, just so everyone's aware, and I really didn't even think about it, to be quite honest, because there was no redactions in the filing. There are a lot of addresses and etc. listed in the filing document. Anyway, Mr. Kratz messaged me and asked me to remove his address, and I've done so. I don't, it is what it is. He's a public figure. At the same time, I don't want people harassing the hell out of him, sending him shit at home, and that's not what we're about at all. None of us condone that kind of behavior. It's fine to be, if you want to have problems with someone, but you don't, this is not going down that road. So anyway, there's a link that's in this description. It's in the first episode or the last episode to the filing documents. I actually think that Zoe has them uploaded to the library at this point because she sent a message. We've got a little room that we use when we want to add stuff. So we can pull it up later. Anyway, the library link leads to the Google Drive folder that I created. And as documents come in, they'll be added to that folder. So it should remain and be fine. Anyway, I redacted his address, and that document, this document we're fixing to look at, I'm taking it's his old address. I've also redacted that. Not that it matters, I guess, but still at the same time, I don't want people that may read this document because it's an older document. This exhibit is apparently it's 7 pages and it's got many things listed. I guess that are binding, or I guess supposed to be legally binding. Basically, the contract that he had with Sean Reg, transition, whatever. Some of it's kind of tedious, but not terribly. I haven't read the entire thing. I did read some of the first page and a little bit of the second page, but then I just scanned it from that point forward. If there are any other redactions that I need to make, I will redact it. Again, this is not about displaying anger at someone, sending them shit, or going to their house or wherever the hell they live and causing an issue. That's not what this is about. That's not what we're about. So, as a recap, just quickly, the filing document basically says Ken Kratz is saying that transition and these people owe him X amount of dollars, and they didn't pay it. and now he's coming and saying, "Look, I want what we agreed to. You agreed to do." Obviously, there's more to it. There's more to it. There are other, there's some other nuances that are at play here as well. Jay and I were talking just briefly. I had a couple of technical issues before I started. My mic sound okay, by the way, Jay, everyone?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Good. Yeah, the other night my software wouldn't load, but anyway, I reinstalled it, and I actually had a problem getting it to open. But then it okay, I'm working fine now. Just want to make sure. Anyway, Jay and I were talking right before we went live. One of the big issues, and I think Travis even touched on it the other night, is the statute of limitations. And in the U.S., and Jay even talked about it in the UK, once you find out about something, or something is like a contract or whatever, typically you have 3 years to file. 3 years. And so, we're long past that. He would have needed to file in 2021 if you go from a 2018 standpoint. However, because the project wasn't done, I don't know if that would constitute extenuating circumstances. I don't know. I'm not legal lawyer enough to answer that question. So I guess that'll be interesting moving forward. So anyway, yeah, I know, man, it is public information, but federal courts, even circuit courts, they don't typically redact stuff like that. They just don't. Once, even after the fact. Now, if a trial or a case is done and you request something from, we saw what the DOJ did last fall when they released all the DCI reports that they went in and, took the hammer and chisel to. They over redacted stuff. They went stupid, in my opinion. Just completely ridiculous, because we have so many of those reports already. It's just ridiculous. But in certain situations, they will redact, especially if you get something from, like I said, the DCI, Calumet County, even Green Bay, and some of these other counties. They will redact personal information. Federal court's different, they just are. They just, I've seen in these civil suits, they just don't redact really pretty much anything. It's just there. And I agree, it is public information. Again, we're certainly not about censoring anyone if they want to request their own documents. It's free on Pacer, or not free, but setting up an individual Pacer account is free. If you want to go in and look at documents or download documents, you can. It costs 10 or 15 cents a page. So unless something's really huge, it's pretty cheap. This one's less 7 pages, so I think there might be a couple of bucks, maybe filing fee or some kind of minimum charge, but it's not much. So unless a federal court seals an exhibit or something, it's pretty much there. Then they won't redact anything. Yeah, whiskey for breakfast. I think it's the right thing to do. It's just me. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, we've got another joiner here. Looky there. It's sunshine.
Greetings, everyone. I apologize for running late, but I think it's just the way it is.
Don't apologize. I was late anyway, So,
Oh, good. Oh, I see. We've only been live 10 minutes. All right, awesome.
I almost forgot as well.
Hi, Jay.
yeah,
Hi.
I wasn't gonna do this tonight, Christina, but I thought, you know what, got the document, might as well. It was actually late yesterday, and
Mhm.
I was gonna do it last night, but it was too late. Everybody was like, so I thought, okay, we'll just do it at regular reading with the crew time, because
Yeah.
it's not that long of a document, 7 pages, kind of small type. This is this is not something that was prepared recently. This is years old, and it's the type. I've got it blowed up, but
Is
it's
this
kind
this is that contract that
of
that
exhibit 2,
Travis was asking about, right?
exhibit 2. That's right.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what this has to say. There's been a room in my brain that's been like noodling on all of this since we had our last open mic. And this is
Yeah,
quite
it's
curious.
it's interesting. I'll give you that.
The potential reasons for doing this. And I know I don't think many in our audience are following the Fulton County Young Thug Fonnie Lewis fall from grace. What a pun that is, since Nancy Grace fell from her grace as a DA in Fulton County as well. But there's so many parallels in the behavior of the individuals in the Young Thug DA's office that mimic the government officials in this case.
Well,
It's almost
it's like not to interrupt you too much, but it's kind of like this the DCI and certain agents just doing things because they can. So it's kind of like the atmosphere. So like in that office there in Fulton County, it's like, hey, I can get away with it, so why not go ahead and do it, right?
well, it calls to mind for me, and I wrote about this a few years ago on Reddit, and I think we've discussed it a couple of times. There was a pediatrician who was exposed for making allegations without basis on parents, like doing pay for play. That's what I call it. Like referring cases to have children removed to get them into the foster care system where there just really wasn't evidence to do that. Well, she got booted out of Wisconsin and went to Alaska and got busted for doing the same thing. Well, someone went on record in a magazine article and with a comment, and now this is me paraphrasing her comment, but that these government entities have a Rolodex of expert witnesses
Sure.
that will say whatever you need them to say for whatever you're willing to pay. I would love to get that Rolodex and see what all it contains, because I would not be surprised to learn that there's a Rolodex to begin with, B, that the names are going to be attached to so many of these cases where how these people either got convicted, had their children taken, were sued successfully, all comes down to experts, and I say that with air quotes, who are convincing Academy Award winning actors, and they're not being truthful. So that's where I'm at with all of this.
If you remember in the Avery trial, remember the ballistics expert Newhouse? How many trials? I mean, he'd been in he'd been their expert for, I don't know, 30 years, and he had been in 290 trials or something like that.
Well, and I think about Eisenberg, how she misidentified the bones in the Christine Rudy case,
World.
which was right around Teresa Halbach's, and then was exposed as being part of a team that like did some crazy article and analysis of like King Henry the Eighth or someone from, back in the in that time frame that was completely wrong.
Now, Christina, she's a world-class forensic anthropologist. Now.
Yeah, right up there with Michael O'Kelly and his lie detecting skills, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're all part of the same, not to snag what's his name? Oh man. The club. They're all part of that Rolodex club.
Well, I mean, there's certainly seems to be, and I'm sure it happens in every state, that there's, certain people that they can call on for, as an expert, as the court has accepted them as an expert. So they kind of get this reputation that the court's really not going to question their outcomes too much, which I think is a kind of a failing of the system, really. Especially if a defense attorney maybe doesn't have the resources to expose these kinds of things. So
or the desire or the time.
That too.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces that have to fall into place that aren't really out of the realm of possibility. I think back in 2005, we weren't as aware of of how easily it was done. But I think a lot of people are starting to see just how I don't want to say corrupt, how self-absorbed, whether it be rightfully or wrongfully, people are, and how not everything gets their undivided attention. Now, people like us who are, hyper focused or ADHD or whatever you want to label us, we pay attention to the little things, right? But a lot of people, even when they're giving it their best, they've got 1,000 other things on their mind that are taking up frontal lobe space.
The details are everything.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, they are. The details are everything.
Well, I'm just a very methodical person. Like, I didn't even realize that not everybody was like that. But I'm very detailed and methodical. And even when I wasn't living, quote, right, unquote, I was very determined to get it right.
Well, I mean, it's like that phrase, that we read in last week. It'll be a new Making a Murder season, a new season of Making a Murder, I guess is how it's worded. I mean, that wording there, there's been a lot of commentary about that in various places that people that watched and listened to what that really meant. Personally, I think that Sean probably marketed that to people that he was trying to attract, especially early on. I'm sure this project cost several $1 million to produce.
So what would be curious, or what would be interesting if it happened, if he probably had some sort of demo like Laura Moore had, or some sort of written summary of what they were going to present, and that he probably sent out to production companies, right?
Well, I
or
think
not
more
production company, media streaming companies.
investors. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think if Sean had stayed with what he originally said, he would have had a far better chance of convicting to a Netflix or, NBC Universal or some large established entity that was,
Mhm.
maybe a little bit left or maybe a little bit right, but certainly more centered than involving Daily Wire and everything, all the whatever your feelings may be along with that, because we have to consider it. I mean, it's part of it, but I think he did that to attract investors, and
Well, yeah.
because originally what Sean said was, and he said this publicly. I'm not making stuff up.
Oh
That this
no,
was
multiple times too.
going to be a balanced approach. And it wasn't at all. It was nowhere near balanced
No,
at
well,
all.
you can't, if you present it balanced, it's going to come out in Stephen's favor. Plain
Well,
and simple, because he's wrongfully convicted at minimum.
it was an attack on Stephen and Brendan and on making a murder, which was at the time of the inception. There was so many people that were, Netflix is just making money off of people's misery, and that's an ongoing daily thing, man. And Netflix didn't invent that. That's just dumb. It's just dumb. I mean, you look at the news, and I don't give a dang which one you watch. That's what a lot of the news is made up of, making money off of other people's issues and problems and misery. It is. It's been that way.
Well, and the thing of it is, making a murderer did not create what happened.
No.
And so to try and make them look like they did is not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, it was so funny, and it even still happens sometimes now. People blame making a murder for what happened at trial, and they had nothing to do with it other than being there, filming, trying to interviewing people. They didn't have anything to do with the trial itself, though. Nothing other than being there. Anyway.
Well, the blame is the fact that they filmed it, so they can't. So there's evidence of what happened. It can't be lost.
Right.
You know what it means? So that's why it's blame the victim. That's the blame the victim strategy at work there.
I have real issues, and this is also public record. Kratz tried to take their hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage that they had shot because he was trying to claim that they were agents of the defense, which wasn't true. There was absolutely no proof of that. I've heard this. I saw this written, and I don't remember where. I don't know if it was Reddit. It could have been on Facebook. About they were working. That Laura, one of the filmmakers, knew Buting, and that's how they got involved. But I've not seen any evidence of that. None. Other than what somebody might write. I haven't seen any, actual documentation of that. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think. Now, it's possible. Was it Laura or Maura that went to law school?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I want to say it was. I want to say it was Laura Riccardi, but I could be wrong.
It's possible that someone from the Innocence Project knew whomever of Laura and Maura who went to law school, because I believe whichever one did go to law school, they went to law school at like NYU or something, which is known for film and law. And
yes,
NYU
one of them went to law school there, and the other one went to film school.
And NYU is also known for working closely with the Innocence Project, because New York, like pretty much every other state has a lot of wrongfully convicted inmates.
It's possible. They heard
You
about the
know,
case that way. Yeah.
yeah. And so they may be like blaming Project Innocence, as Fallon likes to call them, because they cued them in,
Right.
I don't know. This case is a case that, when unraveled completely, it's really going to expose a lot of failings in the justice system, plain and simple. And I pray that will allow for serious change to occur, not just on the juvenile level, but all across the board.
The thing is, Christina, I mean, there are, I feel certain in most instances with things that happen that are, we see as egregious, there are things already in place, the checks and balances. The problem is there's no repercussions when, a government official does something wrong. There doesn't seem to be. It gets swept. We never hear about it, or it gets swept aside, or it's justified. Even when we can clearly see someone did a boo-boo, it becomes the second set of circumstances. If you or I did it, maybe not as a government entity, but as a somebody in the private sector, I should say, we get arrested, charged, thrown in jail, or taken to trial. The consequences is what matter. Is what really matters. And how I don't know. I just see this has just become such a cluster.
So here's
So
here's a couple of things that really baffle me about our legal system. One is the absolute immunity that certain officials have, because I think that is a free get out of jail free card that no one should possess when it comes to committing crime. Because, temptation is everywhere. 2, it is legal, and I've mentioned this a few times. So if an employee steals from their boss, it is a criminal offense. If the employer steals from the employee, it's a civil matter. Now, riddle me how that works.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's like law. Doesn't make any sense, but that's law. So that right there says that our justice system is just it's not using equal weights and measures.
Checks and balances.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get this show on the road. If you and Jay are in agreement, we'll split this up. People, you guys can read as much or as little as you want, or if you need to move on or go get a drink or whatever, hand it off. So anyway, without any further delay, let's get started with the Exhibit 2. Again, this is the agreement. You can see your Development and Rights Acquisition Agreement. And this is the document that Kratz talked about multiple times in the original complaint. All right, I'll start us off here. The agreement is made as of this 2nd day of February 2018, the effective date, by and between Convicting a Murderer docuseries LLC and Ohio Limited Liability Company, with an address of, is the address there in Ohio, the producer and Ken Kratz with an address of, and like I said, this is his old address, Kratz. Each of producer and Kratz shall be referred to hereinafter individually as a party and collectively as the parties. The parties desire to develop, produce, and exploit a docudrama-style television series currently referred to as convicting a murderer, which will address the point of view of the police and prosecutor in the Stephen Avery and Brenda Dassey cases, the property. The purpose of the present agreement is to set forth the parties' respective rights and obligations in connection with the property. For good and valuable consideration, is that right? Yeah. And again, I apologize for this document, but it is what it is. This is what was filed. The receipt and sufficiency of which are hereby acknowledged, and in further consideration of the mutual covenants and agreements contained herein. The parties agree as follows. Now, again, you guys have to understand this is speaking from a legal standpoint, so the language is going to be a bit thick. Number one, production of series. Producer agrees to create, develop, produce, and attempt to obtain a commitment to exploit a television pilot series based on the property. Number two, series commitment. Producer will use reasonable efforts to obtain a commitment to acquire the series from a broadcaster, syndicator, cable television entity, or other financier, a third party, and will consult with Kratz regarding producers' efforts in connection herewith. Producer will have full creative and business control of the series and over the terms of any agreement with such third party agreement. All right, Christina, you want to read a little bit? I've read a couple.
Consulting services. Kratz will provide consulting services in the development of the series. Such services will include reasonable, non-exclusive consulting services as are customarily rendered by consultants of first-class productions in the U.S. television industry, as when and where required by producer, and Kratz will comply with all reasonable directions, requests, rules, and regulations of producer in connection therewith, whether or not the same involve matters of artistic taste or judgment. Kratz acknowledges that he may be required to work with other individuals assigned by producer. Kratz will be paid a consulting fee of $4,000 per month for 20 months, commencing on or before March 1st, 2018. The results and proceeds of Kratz's consulting services shall be deemed a work made for hire, specifically ordered by producer, with producer being deemed the sole author of such results and proceeds, and the owner of all rights of every kind or nature, whether now known or hereafter devised in and to such results and proceeds. Wow.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Christina, you weren't here yet and you haven't read. There are 2 amendments that Kratz hand wrote in here.
Okay.
So we'll get to those.
All right. Number 4, credit. Kratz will be entitled to an end roll screen credit in connection with consulting services performed hereunder, the form and placement of which shall be at producer's sole discretion. producer will not be liable for any inadvertent failure to provide such credit of which producer has been notified in writing by Kratz, provided the producer will use reasonable efforts to cure any such failure on a prospective basis. 5. Compensation. As full consideration for all rights, licenses, privileges, waivers, and property herein granted, and for all warranties, representation, and covenants herein made by Kratz, producer agrees to pay Kratz as follows. A. Fixed compensation. I. A non-refundable payment in the amount of $25,000. And then 2, something handwritten and a K.
Hold on.
All right. To Andrew Kratz. Initial KK. That's
his son.
interesting. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Initial KK. Upon the license or sale of the series to a third party. Okay. That is really interesting.
Yes, it is.
And then subclause 2, a consulting fee as set forth in paragraph 3 above. B, contingent compensation. In the event producer enters into a third-party agreement with respect to the series and provided that Kratz is not in material breach of this agreement, Kratz shall receive a profit participation equal to, and it looks like 20% is crossed out, 18% is
25.
initial.
The crossed out is 25.
Okay, 25% is crossed out, 18% is initialed of the producer's share of net profits calculated on the same basis as producer's net profit participation. In the event any other project is developed and or produced by producer based substantially on the property, and provided that Kratz is not in material breach of this agreement, then Kratz shall receive a net profit participation to be negotiated in good faith based on industry standards for projects of such type. C, advance, provided that Kratz is not in material breach of this agreement, then Kratz shall receive the following advance, which will be recoupable against the contingent compensation as set forth in paragraph 5B and or 5B II above, the $25K on or before February 15th, 2018. All right, I'll take a break.
Okay. Yeah, you want to read a little bit?
Yeah, I'll carry on. For purposes of this paragraph 5, net profits shall mean any non-returnable revenue arising from the distribution, merchandising, or other exploitation of the series, and or any element thereof, including contingent compensation, format fees, bonuses, and royalties, as well as any additional non-returnable sums actually received by or irrevocably credited to the producer, and or any of its agents or representatives for its account, as a result of any exploitation of any of the property and or any element thereof, less expenses, and then it's got expenses in quotes, shall mean the sum equal to any and all actual direct out-of-pocket costs and expenses actually incurred by the producer in connection with the development, production, and post-production of the series and its efforts to attain a series commitment as set forth herein, including but not limited to delivery costs, provided that the purposes of this calculation, the production budget should be deemed not to exceed $2.5 million, and sales commission shall not exceed 12.5%.
Jay, just a second. Now, you've kind of been around this industry, right? A little bit. Did I hear you say that before?
Yes.
So does this sound, what you just read there, does this sound pretty standard?
Yeah, it is all standard. Just basically means that if the show didn't go ahead and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff, say now the show was cancelled because A, nobody backed it, B, something major happened or anything like that. There normally is an insurance which you would have, which will cover you in an event of, say earthquake and the set got ruined. Okay.
Okay, right.
Well, his show is not about the set. His show is about making a murder. So that's never really going to happen. But he could have out-of-pocket expenses where he's gone somewhere to interview somebody. So you've got the flights, you've got his taxi, you've got his hotels. And then that could be about maybe 5,000-6,000. And then he comes back and he's got nothing to show for it. So it's little things like that that all mount up, that come out to your bottom line.
The incidentals, basically.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought it, I mean, that sounded pretty reasonable to me. So, okay. All right, carry on.
I don't know if I understand that paragraph, actually. What are they saying?
Well, I think it's saying in a nutshell, it's saying the net profit shall mean any this is at the very top, non-returnable revenue arising from the distribution, merchandising. So these are expenses that, you have to kind of pay for up front, that if something happened, then we're going to get into the insurance part of it. But this stuff doesn't count. And all this stuff comes off the bottom line. So it has to be considered in whatever profits. Does that sound reasonable, Jay?
Yeah. So if he sold the show and he sold it for, say, I don't know, 3 million, okay, then the show's budget is for 2.5. So they've got 500,000 as a profit, right? Say now they didn't provide the show in time to Daily Wire. So Daily Wire now says, I'm not going to pay you the £3 million to show it. I'm going to pay you, say, £2.75 million. Then they've only got £250,000 profit to deal with. So they're saying that the sales commission should not exceed roughly about the 12.5%.
All right. So let me ask you this. So let's say they sold it for $10 million and they accrued $4 million in filmmaking costs. They can only charge Kratz $2.5 million, and they would have to pay him 18% of 7.5, not 18% of 6, right? Because it says not to exceed. So they're saying they're not going to spend any more than $2.5 million, right? Let's say they ended up spending $3 million.
Yeah.
They can't they can't change that, because in reality they spent more. They would still have to pay him 18% on that. They'd have to eat the $500,000, not him.
I think he'd lose out as well, because his sales commission shall not exceed the 12.5%. So he just get a percentage of it back, you see.
Right. And also what it said above, also what Kratz, the calculation for Kratz is tied in exactly what Sean Rick is, his calculation. He's the producer.
Yes.
So if Rec loses, then Kratz would lose, because it's the calculation It's supposed to be the same for both.
Yes. So it's a bit like a partnership in a company. If you've only earned £100, you can only split it 2 ways. If that's the agreement as being 50-50, are you with me? But then if you made a loss, then both of you haven't earned anything.
There you go. And we don't know what the these contractual agreements are
We need
between.
a contract. Actually, you know what? My daughter has a friend who knows someone who does contract law. I might have them. Do you got somebody?
No, what I'm saying is that there are others named in this lawsuit involved. We don't know what their contractual whatever is. So
I would love to have like a download into my brain of how to understand this whack-a-mole language, because like there's words in here that exploit. How can you put the word exploit in a legal document and it not be evidence of committing a crime?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like exploit to me is like you're pillaging.
Well, there's other connotations that can go with that, though. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but
that's why I'm saying I need someone to help me make it make sense.
Right. Oh, I did send a message to Travis, but he may be doing other things, so he may not know that we're live and can help us with some of this legal jargon. But I'm sure he'll be able to help us maybe afterwards if we can't get to it. I want to say hello to that Aussie Henberry. He's in the live chat. So yeah, Henberry, this is the actual contract that we didn't have the other night. This is Exhibit 2. This is the actual contract between Kratz and Transition, Sean Reck, whatever. So anyway.
Hi, Henberry. Long time no chit chat.
Anyway, Jay, if you want to continue on there at insurance number 6.
Number 6, insurance. Producer will obtain an errors and omissions insurance policy for the series in the minimum amount of $1 million per occurrence and $3 million in the aggregate, and will name Kratz as an additional insured on the policy. Number 7, grants of rights. A. In consideration of the mutual promises contained herein, and other good and valuable consideration, the receipt and sufficiency of which is hereby acknowledged, producers hereby acquires, and Kratz hereby assigns, conveys, sells, and transfers to producer all television, motion picture, home video, internet, allied and subsidiary and ancillary rights in and to the property for the use of by the producer and the producer's successors has assigned throughout the world and in perpetuity, including without limitation the following rights. I. The right to develop one or more scripts based on the property. I. The right to make one or more television programs, motion pictures, or other properties based on the property, any part thereof, or any sequences or characters therein, including, without limitation, theatrical productions, television series, and made-for-television movies, and made-for-the-home video productions.
By the way, Christina, Kratz initialed each page. You see that K over to the right?
You know what? They muzzled him. That's why he's so angry.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he had to sign an NDA just like everyone else.
Well, that right there says he can't talk.
No.
He can't get paid by anybody else to tell his version of events ever again. They muzzled him. Yep. Oh, he's no wonder he's suing. He's livid.
All right. Yep. All right, Jay. If you want to continue on, or you want to hand off?
Yeah, triple I. The right to distribute, exhibit, and otherwise exploit any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties in any and all media, and by any means now known or hereafter devised, including without limitation all forms of theatrical and non-theatrical distribution and exhibition, including without limitation free broadcasts, pay television, cable, subscription, pay-per-view, video on demand, DVD, internet, and mobile devices. IV. The right to manufacture, distribute, and otherwise exploit all forms of video cassettes, DVDs, and other devices of any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties, and to combine such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties with other programs on such video cassettes, DVDs, and other devices. V. The unrestricted right to edit, amend, add to, subtract from, use, not use, alter, or otherwise modify and combine with any other material, the whole or any part of the property, and to publish and otherwise exploit any revision, remake, sequel, prequel, adaptation, translation, dramatization, new issue, or other versions thereof, and to make foreign versions thereof and in connection therewith. God, that was a mouthful.
Can we pause and chat for a second?
Yeah.
I would like to see the contract that Brendan and Steven signed for Laura and Maura and compare these two.
Yeah, that's something that was never, brought out in the civil trial, Culver v. Netflix. We never saw that. I know that they got. I know they got. Well, I'll say I know. I'm remembering that they got $5,000 each.
That's what I remember as well. But I wonder I'm curious if Barbara, Brendan's mom, has a copy of Brendan's contract.
I'll ask her.
Yep. And I would like and ask her if she's okay with us sharing it. We got to make sure it's legal to do so. We don't want to get her in trouble. And then two, I want to do a comparison and contrast. Listening and reading over this, do you know what comes to mind? Have you ever heard people talking about they went to Hollywood and sold their soul to the devil and got famous?
Sure.
This is what it is. This language right here makes you feel like you're literally selling yourself.
They're basically saying that the producer, which would be transition, what you're committing to, whatever you provide is theirs. You've given it.
Well, no, whatever what you put on camera, they're allowed to take and do whatever they want with your image, correct, your voice, correct, and you can't say do anything about it.
Not legally, no. You can't.
Now, it's curious that they're not listing social media in here, and his YouTube channel got taken down before he filed this. And I don't think truthers, quote,
he got it back.
Okay. Because I don't think truthers are the ones that are trying to shut him up. I mean, as a person seeking the truth, Ken Kratz talking is only going to benefit us.
I mean, we got blamed for that.
Of course. We get blamed for everything.
Foul play as an entity, but, I know from my perspective, there's not been one word about saying, hey, we need to create some, whatever and get Kratz shut down on YouTube. Not one.
I don't want him to shut up. I want him to keep talking.
Hey, it's free country. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you think you can get away with, I guess. I mean, yeah, free speech is one of our guaranteed rights, and it's actually the first one. But it's not free from consequence always, right? But anyway,
I'd
You know,
even, Ken Kratz, if it's legal, I would not mind interviewing you on foul play. Let us know if you're interested. If you're
Well,
not going to get in trouble, well, I'd entertain you for an interview. I have some questions. I'll even submit my questions beforehand. And
yeah,
do you and Jax, would you be willing to help record it if he
I'd have to think.
was to
I'd have I'd,
contact us?
I'd have to think about that, Christina, because you know he contacted us prior to going to New Scott, and you know we're just I look at us as trying to find out the full truth in the
Mm-hmm.
matter of the Halbach case. There's more to it than just saying, hey, he was part of the case, a big part of the case, the lead prosecutor. Um, there's weight that goes with that. So, and the bigger thing is that he's got his own channel. So, what we've tried to do, I think, overall, is to try to find out everything we can that happened in the case. And um, I personally wanted him to answer questions that we have no other really out or how can I word this properly? We have no other way to get the information
Mm-hmm.
that he probably has or has knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, from his viewpoint, I'm sure there are risks in anything that he, documentation or would say publicly
Mm-hmm.
because of what's already happened in the past. So I'd have to think about it. I wouldn't tell you an outright no, but I would certainly need to think about that for a minute, and we can talk about it.
Okay. Because and like I said, if everyone else on staff and mod of foul play agrees to it, because we are a collective,
Correct. And
I
we don't always agree, right? I
no,
mean, we just
we
don't.
don't.
We're just people,
That's right. And the reason we work so well together is because we recognize that we all have different views, we all have different perspectives, and you're never going to find the truth about anything, especially a cold case or a case with a lot of questions, if you continue to tell people what they want to hear or you all agree on everything. We have to ask questions, and we have to agree to disagree at times. I mean, most of us have different ideas of who did it,
Sure. That's exactly right.
So,
Hey, I wanted to address this for case. Yes, we did say no, but there's more to it than somebody just saying, "Hey, let's do an interview." That's not what happened at all. There's more to it than that. Without getting into the minutia details, it wasn't just a black and white thing. There
and
were ground rules that he wanted to put in place that I certainly didn't feel comfortable with. I don't think many at Foul Play felt comfortable with. To me,
let me be clear. If I had known this was already a possibility that didn't go, I never would have said that on air, by the way.
Well, you had stepped away, and that's fine.
Yeah.
This happened second or third week of March last year. He approached me on X about doing an interview, but it's not just as simple as like what we're doing tonight or any other live stream that we do. It's not scripted. I mean, Doc has when he does his thing, and a lot of times when I do something, we have things prepared, and we try to stay as much on track as we can for the podcast. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
What he wanted to do was a very much more controlled. It wouldn't be just a spur of the moment live stream where you're just asking questions and getting a response. It wasn't like that. So there is a complete difference in saying, hey, I'll answer certain things, but certain things I'm not going to talk about. That's not. You see what I'm saying here? It wasn't
Yeah.
just let's just jump on and do a live stream and talk. That's not what it was at all. And that's
No, it was
really
an interview. It was
correct.
an interview, and it's an interview. I don't want to say because I haven't had interviews conducted on me this way, but I know that there are interviews where you submit the questions prior to.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that, because when you're part of a case like this, if you don't have ground rules, then you're going to look like or let me rephrase that. So there's certain questions he won't touch with a 10-foot pole.
No.
And we know that. So I don't have to agree with it. I recognize it, though.
Well, again, I understand it. Maybe I don't agree with it at this point in time. We're 2007, the trial ended, and Brendan and Stephen were found guilty and sent to prison. So here we are, 10, 15? We're basically running up on 18 years since that happened. Henbury, what I'm talking about was answering the question by Casey. Said that we said no to interviewing Ken because Christina had made that offer a few minutes ago about wanting to talk to him, and as I explained, it wasn't just let's just jump on a live stream and talk, ask questions and get some kind of response. That's not what that was about at all.
It wasn't an open mic type format.
No, not at all.
It would have been like more of a sit down interview.
It would have been questions sent to him, and he could choose or not choose to respond to.
Right.
And so there's weight that comes with that as well. Again, he has his own channel. He's got far more people looking at him than people that look at us, and we've got just shy of 3,000 subscribers, which is awesome.
Amazing.
It is. We're just regular people that doing a thing that we feel pretty passionate about in trying to find our truth. Whatever information we can get, which direction are we going to go next? So anyway, we've gotten kind of off the.
Yeah, let's circle back to the document. Christina, stop with the great ideas.
Anyway, what Jay read there,
or not so great ideas. Anyway,
basically is saying that the convicting Rashawn and transition can do whatever once it's done with the material that he provides. That's pretty standard, right, Jay? I mean, that's not out in left field.
It's just you hand it over and they can do whatever they like with it.
There you go. All right. Continue on or pass it off. You want to continue on?
I'll go down to the end of the page, and then that leaves another 2 pages then for somebody else to take over.
Okay.
Right. VI. The right to publicize, advertise, or otherwise promote any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties, and in connection with therewith, to prepare and use synopsis of the property. VII. The soundtrack, recording, music publishing, legitimate stage, live television, radio broadcasting, and merchandising rights to the property, to any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties based thereon, and to any characters contained therein. VIII. The right to make remakes and sequels to any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties. XI. The right to copyright any such television programs, motion pictures, or other properties, sound recordings, musical compositions, and other copyrightable works based on or derived from the property, and to secure copyright and trademark protection to all works based on or derived from the property. X. The rights to use Kratz's name, likeness, I don't know, Sobrick, I don't understand that word.
I have never heard of that word. So Brickwood?
Sobriquet. Voice and biography. To depict, portray, impersonate, reenact, or make use of all the incidents of the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey case proceeding, surrounding, following, and otherwise in any way relating to the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's cases, that the producer deems in his sole discretion necessary or appropriate to produce one or more television programs or motion pictures and or other entertainment properties, whether wholly or partially factual or fictional, and use any or all of its information and its materials in Kratz's possession or under Kratz's control, which Kratz shall, at the producer's request, disclose and provide to the producer freely, completely, and candidly, in such forms as, without limitation, copies of any newspapers or magazine clippings, photographs, transcripts, journals, notes, recordings, home movies, videotapes, and other physical materials relating to the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, and all Kratz's thoughts, observations, recollections, reactions, and experiences surrounding, arising, out of, concerning all those events, circumstances, and activities relating to the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's cases. And does it end on that line there? And then run the new page?
There's XI.
I'll do the XI. The right to sublicense or authorize others to exercise any of the foregoing rights subject to producers' obligations hereunder.
Wow.
Yeah. Sobriquet. Sobriquet is nickname. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
never heard that word before. That's a new one.
Yeah, definitely got to be a legal term.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like legal lingo.
All right. We're on page 5. We got this page and a couple more. B. Kratz preserves all literary rights to the books written by Kratz on the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases. Producer will have the right of first negotiation with respect to the acquisition of rights to adapt said literary works. Kratz will notify producer in writing if he receives an offer from any third party to acquire such rights, following which there will be an exclusive 90-day period in which Kratz and producer will negotiate in good faith a literary option and or purchase agreement with respect to such rights. If no agreement is made to option or acquire such literary rights within 90 days from the date such negotiations commence, Kratz will have the right to negotiate an agreement with a third party or parties with respect to said literary rights. Okay. C. Notwithstanding anything contained in this agreement to the contrary, it is producer's intention to depict the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases as factually possible. Kratz shall be entitled to review and be consulted on the final shooting scripts of the television programs, motion pictures, or other properties produced hereunder, it being understood that further changes to such final shooting scripts may be made by producer. No approval rights are granted whatsoever in connection with any scripts created or television programs, motion pictures, or other properties produced hereunder, which rights shall be held solely and exclusively by the producer and shall include, without limitation, control over all dramatic elements of said scripts and television programs, motion pictures, or other properties.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yeah.
This does not sound like the language one would use when trying to make a documentary. This sounds more like a film, like a made for TV, loosely based film on a set of events that does not have to adhere to the truth. Like a Lifetime movie,
yeah,
doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think that, just given what Jay said in the past and, even tonight, this is a pretty standard kind of contract that runs in the film industry. Am I saying that right, Jay?
It's probably a catch-all. Covers all eventualities of no matter what level you are and what you do.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you, Christina. I don't. It's not talking like this is necessarily about the truth. It's whatever they want to make it.
That's why I think I really would like to see the contract Making a Murderer, like what Stephen and Brendan signed. Right. I'm curious to see if the language in that reads so
similar.
But before Ken have signed this, right, anything in these paragraphs can be changed and amended. He probably didn't have a gun put it to his head to sign this.
No, but see, so the reason it's bothering me isn't because I think Kratz. What concerns me is it was marketed as a documentary that was going to set the record straight.
Tell a balanced story.
Tell a balanced story of the factual events, all right, of how Stephen Avery, the guilty party, who is in fact morally guilty of killing Teresa Halbach, was convicted. Making a Murderer was the one that dramatized, that made stuff up, that used selective editing and dramatic music to sell a version of events that didn't occur. But the reality is, by reading this language, Kratz is saying you can take my face, my voice, my nickname, my thoughts, and you can do whatever you want with them. And that's that.
That's what he's done.
Yeah. And, part of this language is, it even mentioned thoughts and so forth. So this gets into some of the intellectual property that he talked about in the complaint. Obviously, I mean, he's not in convicting a huge amount, but he is in it, in several spots. So, yeah, but basically, I think this is kind of an industry standard type of contract. That's just kind of the way I read it. It's not tailored necessarily, for a documentary that's looking to do, because as we know, their truth, and everybody, people have a right to disagree. Their truth is certainly not the truth of a lot of people that they tell.
Transition probably have had lawyers pull up all this.
Say that again, Jay.
Transition would have had lawyers pull up all this. They wouldn't just
absolutely
done it off their own bat.
No, they've got he's got at least one lawyer that is tied with transition, and there may be more. There's maybe more than that involved, but absolutely.
But it's all down to contract law and stuff as well. It's not just physically about him. Most probably
Correct.
the police officers that were also in the have signed similar, except they never received a payment for being in the as in they might have had a payment for being in the show, but they weren't going to get a share of the profits. Are you with me? So that part might not be included in what would be Fassbender's agreement. Are you with me? Depends on what agreement they give when yourselves appeared on the show. You may have had a summary of one. Then Fassbender might have had a summary of his as well, similar to yours, because he's in the show.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I think, and again, people can disagree with me, and I'm fine with it. But as much as Candy and Earl were in the first 3 episodes, I think they got compensated in some way. Certainly, I'm sure they wasn't a share of the profits, but some kind of compensation, whatever that may be, because they were in it.
They may have got like a payment for being in the show, so they might have received $15,000. They were quite happy to accept it, and they said, "Right, done." They might have gone to say, for argument's sake, Earl, and Earl have said, "Oh, Candy's having 15. Give me 20 if you want my side," and they've accepted 20 with him, but they could have paid him 10. Depends what you negotiate on the day.
There you go. Yeah, we'll try to find out, Christina. I will send Barbara a message and see if she has that and the legalities of letting us take a look at it, even if we don't produce it publicly, right? Could be interesting. Anyway, let's move on. Number 8. And this is talking about the muzzling that Christina talked about above. Exclusivity. And I will mention this again. Colburn signed his contract. I want to say, somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't looked at it in a while, but I'm pretty sure that Colburn signed his contract in April of 2018. Pretty sure that was when he signed it. And he was retiring. He put his papers in. And so
when did the second season of Making a Murderer debut? Does anyone know?
You could look it up. It was sometime, seemed like it was fall of 2018.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Of course, everybody knew it was coming, so this being made, riding in that wave of people following Making a Murderer, the timing was pretty damn good. So I can't fault him for that.
Yeah.
Exclusivity. Producer shall have the exclusive right to engage in development, pre-production, and production activities with respect to any work intended to be based on the property, including, without limitation, the preparation and/or submission of treatments. Yeah, okay. Screenplays and/or writings based upon the property, and the negotiation and consumption of agreements relating to any of the rights in or to the property which may be acquired by producer hereunder. This applies only to such activities on or after February 2nd, 2018. Okay. Ownership. Copyright in the property and all elements and derivatives thereof shall be in the name of the producer, provided that producer may license or assign such copyright as required pursuant to any third-party agreement. No other person or party shall develop any derivative works based on the producer's works or the property without the producer's prior written consent. The results and proceeds and services rendered by Kratz or materials created by Kratz in connection with the property or any television program, motion picture, or materials created by Kratz. I just read that improper. I've lost my spot here. Shall be deemed, okay. Motion picture or other work shall be deemed a work under made for hire specifically ordered by the producer, with producer being deemed the sole author of such results and proceeds, and the owner of all rights of every kind of nature, whether now or known hereinafter, devised and such results and proceeds, and in event any such results proceeds are not considered works made for hire. Kratz hereby irrevocably assigns, transfers, conveys in consideration for the compensation provided hereunder all such results and proceeds and all rights of every kind or nature, whether now known or hereafter devised in such results and proceeds to producer. Kratz hereby waives all rights of, quote, droit morale. I've never heard that word either. Droit morale, or quote, morale rights of authors, end quote. That's got to have some legal meaning there, or any similar rights or principles of law that Kratz may now or later have in such results and proceeds, if and to the extent that the foregoing or any other provision of this agreement does not vest fully and effectively in producer any or all of the rights described herein as and when granted or to be granted to the producer hereunder. Kratz hereby absolutely, irrevocably, and unconditionally grants and assigns to producer all such rights not so vested. Let me roll this up. And so far as may be appropriate by way of immediate assignment of future copyright. This is really got a lot of legal stuff in it.
Like
if and
that, oh, go ahead.
If and to the extent any quote unquote moral rights may not be granted or assigned to the producer for any reason, Kratz hereby absolutely, irrevocably, and unconditionally waives to the maximum extent possible in any and all rights which Kratz may have or the client to have here thereunder or under any similar or analogous analogous laws anywhere or as a result of any alleged violation of any such right, or to institute any action on the ground that any changes, deletions, additions, or other results or proceeds of Kratz services hereunder violate such rights. God Almighty.
That's a lot to unpack. Wow.
Yeah, we really need a lawyer to really decipher
So
this.
droit morale or moral rights, they're rights of creators of copyrighted works. They include right of attribution, the right to have a work published anonymously or pseudo-anonymously, and the right to the integrity of the work. So
Wow.
he gave up that right, which means that he no longer has the right to claim that he wants the integrity. The preserving of the integrity of the work allows the author to object to alteration, distortion, or mutilation of the work that is prejudicial to the author's honor or reputation. Anything else that may detract from the artist's relationship with the work, even after it leaves the artist's possession or ownership, may bring these moral rights into play. So he gave up the right to say, you made me look wrong, you're lying about me, you portrayed me as. He can't do that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite a bit in that. So, absolutely. Yeah, I'd never heard of that droit morale. That's another new one. Moral rights of authors. I never heard of that. So I knew that legally that had some legal meaning. Alrighty. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. Christina, you are, oh my God, we got another one here. You want to read it? Or you want me to read it?
I'll read it. Give me just a second. Let's see. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What did I volunteer for? Okay. Let me get it zoomed in. Number 10. Representation and warranties. Each party represents and warrants that A, it has the sole exclusive right to enter into this agreement. B, it has not made or assumed and will not hereafter make or assume any commitment, agreement, or obligation that will or might conflict with or impair any of the rights granted to the parties hereunder. C, it has not made and will not make any grant, assignment, commitment, or due or permit any act which will or might conflict with or impair any of the rights granted to the parties hereunder. And D, such parties' contributions to the property will be wholly original except to the extent in the public domain, will not, to the best of its knowledge, in the exercise of reasonable prudence, violate or infringe upon copyright rights, rights of privacy, or publicity, or any other right of any person or corporate entity, and will not, to the best of its knowledge, in the exercise of reasonable prudence, contain any defamatory, libelous, obscene, or unlawful matter. Each party agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the other party and its respective successors, assigns, officers, employees, shareholders, directors, representatives, agents, designees, and licenses. The indemnified parties from and against any and all third-party claims, demands, suits, losses, costs, expenses, damages, or recoveries, including reasonable outside attorney's fees, which are actually obtained against, imposed upon, or suffered by any of the indemnified parties by reason of such parties, A, breach of any material provision of this agreement, B, breach of any material provision of any agreement with a third party relating to the property, the series, and or any element thereof, C, gross negligence or intentional misconduct, or D, material misrepresentation to any third party regarding the property, the series, and or any element thereof. Who would want to do contract law after 8 years of law school? Oh my goodness.
It's super, super detailed.
Yeah. Number 11. How much is left?
We got this page and one more.
Okay. All right. I'll finish this page. Publicity. A, Kratz agrees to appear and participate in publicity interviews, publicity photographs, and the like, if and when reasonably requested by the producer at such place or places as the producer reasonably designates, subject to Kratz's prior professional commitments. Producer will provide air and or ground transportation, hotel accommodations, and $150 per diem for any such appearances that take place more than 50 miles from the performer's principal place of residence. Otherwise, no additional compensation shall be payable for any such services. B. Kratz shall not issue or cause to be issued or participate in any publicity other than incidental publicity relating primarily to Kratz, which probably in no event shall be derogatory, relating to this agreement, producer, or any designee, successor, licensee, or assignee, or any work developed or produced by or under the authority of producer based on the property without producer's written consent. In each instance, nor will Kratz enter into any other agreement or arrangement in conflict herewith, or in any way attempt to sell, dispose of, encumber, or hypothecate any of the rights herein granted or to be granted to producer, or do or knowingly permit to be done any act or thing by which any of said rights could be impaired. Kratz shall not use or permit the use or purport to use or permit the use, that just sounds like the same thing over and over, of any of said rights in any manner or for any purpose which would or might unfairly compete with or impair the full and unrestricted use thereof hereunder. Wow. 12. Relationship of the parties. This agreement shall not constitute a partnership, joint venture, agency, employee-employer, or any other similar relationship among the parties hereto, and the parties shall at all times be deemed to be independent contracting parties with respect to this agreement. 13. Remedies. All remedies hereunder, all remedies hereunder shall be cumulative. Kratz acknowledges and agrees that Kratz's sole remedy for any breach or alleged breach of this agreement by producer shall be an action at law to recover monetary damages. In no event shall any of the rights granted or to be granted and or the releases made herein revert to Kratz, except as provided herein.
Oh, there you go.
Page
Excellent.
5 is in the record.
All right, Jay, you want to take us home here?
Okay. 14. Additional assurances and documents. This agreement is irrevocable and is not only for the producer's benefit, but also for the benefit of any other party of whom the producer may sell, assign, and or license the rights, privileges, powers, or immunities granted herein. Kratz, to the best of Kratz's ability, will prevent the use by others of the rights granted hereunder in a manner inconsistent with the grant of the rights to the producer on or after February the 2nd, 2018. Producer may prosecute any action, and Kratz irrevocably grants to producer full power and authority to do so, in Kratz's name, and to take any and all steps as producer, in producer's sole discretion, may elect to restrain and prevent others from so using such rights. Kratz further agrees to execute, acknowledge, and deliver to the producer any and all further documents, assignments, and other instruments in form approved by counsel for producer, necessary or expedient to carry out and effectuate the purposes and intent of the parties as herein expressed, and or deemed necessary or desirable to establish or defend. Producer's title to any materials created hereunder or rights granted hereunder. If Kratz shall fail to execute and deliver any such assignment or other instruments within 10, it's got 10 in brackets, days of being presented, producer shall be deemed to be, and Kratz irrevocably appoints producer, the true and lawful attorney in fact of Kratz to execute and deliver any all such assignments and other instruments in the name of Kratz, which right is coupled with the interest. Producer should provide Kratz with copies of any such instruments or documents executed, verified, acknowledged, and delivered by producer on Kratz's behalf hereunder, provided that the producer inadvertent failure to provide such copies will not be deemed a breach hereunder. 15. Further documents. The party hereby agree to do all such further acts and deeds consistent with the terms hereof that may from time to time be reasonably required to confirm the parties' respective rights and obligations hereunder. The parties further agree to act in good faith hereunder so as to not frustrate the intent of this agreement. 16. Assignment. Producer may assign the rights to the property pursuant to any third-party agreement for the exploitation of the property or otherwise. Kratz may not assign any of his rights other than the rights to receive income or obligations pursuant to this agreement without the prior written consent of producer, and any attempted assignment shall be deemed null and void. Notwithstanding the foregoing, each party shall have the right to assign his rights and obligations under the agreement solely to a legal formed corporate entity wholly owned by such party or such party and her spouse. 17. Notices. Any payments, notices, documents, statements, or other writings collectively referred to herein as notices, required or desired to be given hereunder shall be in writing and sent to the addresses noted above. Notice shall be sufficiently given when personally delivered or, if mailed, return receipt requested. 3, and it's got 3 in brackets, business days from the date of mailing or if sent by email or facsimile, with a copy sent concurrently by first-class US mail on the date of submission. 18. Governing law. Any claim, controversy, or dispute arising hereunder should be governed by the substantive law of Ohio. Any such claim shall be submitted to arbitration before a single arbitrator in accordance with the rules of the American Arbitration Association held in Cleveland, Ohio. The award of the arbitrator shall be binding upon the parties, and judgment may be entered into any court. The prevailing party shall be entitled to collect all arbitration costs and reasonable attorney fees. 19. Oops. There we go. 19.
Yeah, I had a, I don't know, a little bump in whatever. Anyway, continue.
It's gremlins rearing their heads, isn't it? The entire agreement. This agreement constitutes the entire agreement between parties with respect to the subject matter within, and shall supersede all previous understandings and agreements, whether oral or written. This agreement shall be binding upon, and all shall endure to the benefit of the parties and their respective heirs, executors, administrators, assignees, licensees, or successors in interest, and cannot be modified except by a written instruction signed by the parties hereof. if one or more provisions of this agreement are held to be illegal or unenforceable under applicable state law, such legal or unenforceable portions shall be limited or excluded from the agreement to a minimum extent required, and the remaining portions of this agreement shall be interpreted if such portions were so limited or excluded, and shall be enforceable in accordance with its terms. The agreement shall not be amended except by a written executed by the parties. The agreement may be executed in counterparts, including electronic counterparts, and when each of these parties has signed and delivered at least one counterpart, each counterpart shall be deemed an original and, when taken together with other signed counterparts, shall constitute one agreement binding and effective as to each of the parties. In witness whereof, and the parties have excluded the agreements as of the date first indicated above. And then you've got signatures from Convicting a Murderer Docuseries LLC and Ken Kratz.
Thank you very much, Jay and Christina. I'm going to zoom this back just a little. You can see there it says with each, Kratz signed it with 2 of 13 amendments. And we definitely saw 1. Yeah, let me go back up here.
One was being paid to his son, wasn't it?
Yes, that may be both of them. Maybe I think it was early on here. The percentage was changed from 25% to 18%.
Yeah.
Maybe on this page here. No.
Was it on page 2?
It was at the beginning. There's
Yeah.
the initial there.
Here it is, right here.
Yeah. So is he still married?
As far as I know.
Why would you have the 25 paid to your son and not you?
I'm not sure what the status was when this was written. I don't know if they were married. I don't know if they were married yet. I don't remember.
Well, I'm just trying to think what
He's probably read all that, because I'm sure it said in a statement further down that the payment can be made to, and then he's gone back up and changed it to his son's name.
Yeah. Was that on the above page?
I think it's on page 2, isn't it? Just on the bottom.
Could be. Yep. There it is.
unless you are worried about the IRS or some sort of tax thing, or why would you have it paid to your child, adult child, not your wife and not yourself? What are you trying to avoid?
Don't know. I can't answer that one.
Yeah.
I can only speculate, and I'd be wrong.
Or
I'm sure.
why would you bring him into a financial matter when he had no, when he didn't have a role to play in this event that you are committing to film?
Right, you know his first exhibit where he was claiming not more than $75,000, and then it said that he would get paid something like a £25,000 fee on, say, March the 1st, 2018.
Something like that. March 15th or something.
Yeah. So I bet that money's already been paid to Andrew. That's done and dusted and gone, because it wasn't really in his case. And he's after his £4,000 a month over 20 months. I bet he hasn't been paid that. And neither has he been paid his percentage share of the profits or the net profits.
Yeah, we don't really know exactly how much he got, and that's not
He
really
hasn't
been
said.
revealed yet. No, that's not really been revealed. And like I said, there are more documents with this case, but they're summons or whatever, and they,
Who's the attorney filing for Kratz?
hold on, Robert somebody. I had to pull up the document. I can't tell you.
And has Transition or Sean Reck responded?
No, they have not
yet?
responded. No.
Okay. And what is it Kratz is actually suing for? Like, has someone like drilled down on what he wants?
Money.
Okay. Is he saying he's owed money through the contract they didn't pay him, or is he saying they're trying to say they ain't made no money and they have?
Well,
or both.
He's talking about money in this complaint. He's talking about money that they potentially made, and he talked quite a bit about what lenders, or investors came forward and handed over money. Doesn't know what that is, and he said he tried to find out, but was shut out. He also said that.
That's interesting.
This is the lawyer, Robert E. Edelman.
It's interesting he said that, because if you go to Transition Studio website, they have a little thing that that I was unaware of, and it's called the Private Client Collective. Do you know an individual or organization whose story could educate and inspire audiences worldwide? As a private sponsor, you have the unique opportunity to fund a professionally produced documentary, oversee every aspect of production to ensure your vision comes to life and reaches television audiences worldwide. At Transition Studios Private Client Collective, we create exceptional client-funded documentaries that tell your most meaningful stories with authenticity, elegance, and precision. Our commitment to excellence, quality, and discretion ensures that every project is a reflection of the private client's vision and legacy. Our goal is to elevate your story and preserve your legacy for future generations through powerful, enduring films. That's interesting.
It is.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they still have, and I said the other night, I know that, Cam was, it was first 3 episodes were on YouTube for a short time, a week or two maybe, but then to get the rest, you had to sign up for a subscription on the Daily Wire. But then I think it's on Prime. I'm pretty sure it's on Prime now. But it's still on the Daily Wire website. It's down toward the bottom, but it's still there. They've got a few documentaries that they have listed. That is interesting, though. But, again, it's going to be, I'm going to pull something up here. I'm going to look at it before I probably won't throw this on screen. I wanted to be sure what I was talking about a minute ago. Where's that at? Da, 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 da. No, it's not there. Maybe it's over here. Because I said what was sent out. Okay.
Who
There
has
were
a legacy to protect and deep pockets to fund a TV film to
Nicholas Jackson, FaceTime
tell a
video.
story?
sorry. Okay, I'm going to read this off here without putting it on screen. There are a bunch of summons. And these are all summons. I'm going to read off the names. There's 2 to Sean Reck. There's 1 to Transition. There's 1 to Ralph McGreevy. 1 to John Pasek. 1 to Andrew Hale. There are 2 to Convicting and Murder docuseries LLC. There's 2 to the Daily Wire. So there's 10 summons that have been sent out.
Andrew Hale, huh? Interesting.
Well, yeah, he's named in the lawsuit. He's one of the names. Yep.
Interesting. There's been, for anyone who is interested in the people behind the scenes of this production, and I'm talking about this whole hot mess, starting from in the 80s and all of that, there have been a few people who have done some really good sleuthing and posted on Reddit. And one of the deep dives, I didn't write the article, but I have written articles building off of it on Reddit. But Andrew Hale is an interesting fella, to say the least. And there were some good Reddit posts on his professional career. We'll leave it at that.
There we go. Now you can see it. You can see the summons up here, and then down below are the exhibits, the complaint, et cetera, down here at the bottom.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to get a screenshot of that real quick. How I do it? Yeah, I remember. I want all of that.
Judge J. Philip Calabrese assigned to the case. Random assignment, magistrate judge pursuant to, it's got the local rules, et cetera, et cetera.
And, Schimmel lost his little bid for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, he did.
I was looking into the woman who beat him out, the judge, and she worked in, I want to say it was Iowa and Wisconsin for both DOJ departments, and her specialty was criminal appeals. And she was appointed to her Wisconsin position by Doyle. I'm curious because, if she's a woman who likes truth and her justice, then she may be helpful in getting the truth in this case and getting the right people held accountable. And she ran as an independent. the Democrat Party is happy that she won because, they're on a hate Elon Musk track at the moment. But I don't identify with that stuff at all. I just want the truth, and I want justice, and I want people with, who have
Can you
good
hear me, Jay?
things.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Christina must have hit a speed bump in the road.
You can't hear me?
I can hear
And
you.
now,
Okay. But yeah, I'm just curious to see how this could potentially be a positive thing for Stephen and Brendan.
well, it's like the Colburn v. Netflix. You just never know what's going to come out.
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I'm looking here. Okay. Yeah, to answer, who was it that asked?
What are people's thoughts in the chat about this lawsuit?
Kelly McAlien asked us, it's on Amazon Prime, and I just looked. It's $2.99 per episode, so you can watch it there, but you got to pay for it. There's another. I've never seen this before. There's another series on Prime. It's called Stephen Avery Confessions TV series, produced in 2020, starring Randy McDaniel, narrator, Tom Kirchner, Carl Warnacki, Michael Griesbach, directed by James Sharp and Brad Osborne. Wow.
Someone else trying to make money?
Yep. And it doesn't cost anything with the Reels REELZ subscription trial. So you could get a trial, not pay anything, watch it, and cancel. Which a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's I don't know. I think I'm just waiting for the replies to start coming in, and I think Travis said that they have something like 20 or 30 days to respond to this civil suit. And I'm sure responses will start rolling in, and when they do, we'll get them and publish them. And Barry, did Kratz admit he's in the table dancing photos? No. There was something on X there that was really interesting for those that haven't followed along. A lot of squabbling going on and so forth, and I guess it can be taken in any such capacity. But there's several photos from this club that is apparently is a thing in Wisconsin. I'm sure it's probably in every state where this. There was a lot of nudity and so forth. They had a stage, and there was a lot of people there. And allegedly, this person that was in the audience, people had identified as Kratz, and some others identified as who they are. And of course, we're talking about in the 80s, much younger looking, obviously. And Kratz posted a photo that basically said it was him. Now, personally, I don't know. I'm not good with faces, so I'm probably one of the last ones that should be answering or even talking about this. I'm not really seeing it, but these photos are not great quality. They're pretty low res. So I'm not sure. I saw that too, Henbury. I'm like, what the hell, man? Did he just say that was him? He was there? This was some kind of thing. It was, I think, outside of Milwaukee, and you can tell they're out in a wooded area. It was cleared. It wasn't like they were in the brambles and sticks, but it's in the woods, wooded area. So and you got males and females nude up on this stage, walkway, runway, whatever.
Are we talking about the picnic
Yeah.
pics?
Well, no, it wasn't really a picnic. Well, I guess maybe there were people having picnics, but
Well, they're on picnic table out
Uh,
at like some sort of a park pavilion looking area.
yeah, I guess you could call it that. Sure.
Are we like the Bambi Bambinic link photos? Are those the photos we're speaking on?
Yeah.
Okay. Those
Definitely.
photos are very interesting. The issue is it's really hard to differentiate with the quality of the photos that we've seen, because anyone who lived through the 80s knows how much we all looked alike. Because like I can look at my high school photos from the early 90s, and half of my friends look like the other half. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
Oh yeah, the big hair and certain hairstyles were in style, and everybody wanted that hairstyle, and so
and
on
they're
and so
not
forth.
great. They're not zoomed in clarity, and the quality of photography,
Yeah.
just wasn't. You're talking about Kodak film, and no offense against Kodak, they've documented a lot of my life, but even professionally taken photographies, like our senior picture from 91, 92, our graduating class, half the people there, I can't tell you who they are because they all look alike.
Yeah,
And
I mean the photography, really took a huge boost in the late 90s, early 2000s when, the high def stuff really became part of everyday life, was beginning to. I mean, I bought the twins were born in 2001, and before they were born, I bought a Sony HD camera, and hey, now I got a whopping 8 meg memory chip with that thing. I bought separately, 8 megs, and I paid. It's embarrassing how much, and I got this
oh
at the
no.
Sony outlet store for that camera and that 8 meg memory chip stick. I think I paid like $800, $900.
Oh
It was
yeah.
crazy.
My sister and I went to the Walmart and put a Nikon camera on layaway from my mama and paid on it for a birthday present, and we spent like $500 and some odd dollars on it.
Yeah, it's crazy
Yeah,
times.
yeah. And I mean, it was a good camera for then, but now you look at these cameras that Nikon, they've got a Nikon 10,000 lens, 10,000 magnification.
Oh yeah, I mean you can buy movie cameras. The individual now can buy a movie camera and shoot.
Financially afford to buy one, yes.
Well, I mean, still, I mean, they're still expensive, but you can buy, basically a studio quality camera and a few lenses for $8,000 to $10,000, and that's, I mean, back in the 90s and early 2000s, it would have cost you. Well, even if you could get your hands on one, you would have paid far more than that.
Yeah. And that's what the internet has done, right? It's allowed us to have access where the market has expanded for us to acquire things, which has actually brought the price down. Yes. I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but in reality, it isn't, because what you're getting for that money allows you to do things that before were limited to only a few. So,
well, yeah, you'd have to use, some kind of 8mm camera, or, I mean, the iPhones and the Androids came out. They were recently in the last, 5 years. You've been able to, or maybe even a little bit longer, you've been able to shoot movies on and get really good quality
Mm-hmm.
out of these phones. They've come so far. You think about it, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But
Technology has grown
oh yeah.
really fast in
But
leaps and bounds.
yeah, but Christina's right. The quality of these photographs in at this picnic party, whatever. I mean, it was an adults only picnic, no children, because there was nudity. Is it really Kratz there? I can't say that it was. Some people swear it is, and I'm not going to disagree with them. Again, I'm terrible with faces. I mean, when I know somebody, after I've seen
Would
them.
I say that based on Kratz's behavior, he would not do something like that? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say it could. I would not be comfortable saying it isn't him, because his life choices that are in the public domain do not equate a man who wouldn't attend an adult only nude party out in the middle of the woods. So there's
Possible.
that,
Possible.
So but there's not, is it a and I would also say I've seen people convicted on worse pictures and then
Yeah, I
found
mean,
so
yeah,
there's that.
these are pretty rough. But I mean, there's a number of people that are claimed to be, some of these people that are involved in the case, and found in these photographs. Again, I can't say that if it's them for sure or not, because they're much, much younger, and we don't have a real comparison
And
to put it up against.
what is I cannot remember. I'm having a hard time remembering his name. The gentleman who owned the bar, whose bartender was murdered, and then they changed her cause of death. I haven't asked him, Henberry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When he posted that a few days ago, I was like, wait, what? Did he just admit that was him and he was there? I don't. You could read it that way. I mean, I certainly.
What did
I
he
certainly
say?
kind of read. Well, I don't want to get into big connotation. Like I said, there's been a lot of fussing and fighting on. I can say it this way: Kratz has been into it with someone for several months, and Kratz threatened to dox and expose this person, publish photos of their family and friends, and
What?
yeah, we talk after the show. Again, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of who this was, because I'm just not. Anyway, Kratz ended up. This person is a truther, and was asking some pretty tough questions, and I guess he got frustrated, or Kratz wouldn't answer, and then his kind of war of words, and I think Kratz ended up blocking him, and so it's kind of been this side rumbling going on. I mean, even though somebody blocks somebody, that doesn't mean someone else can't tell them or show them what's being said.
Right.
So anyway, recently something got brought up, and a photo got published of the one I'm talking about, allegedly showing Kratz at this party. So Kratz posted a picture of this person as a very young person, probably, I don't know how old this person is, but I'm guessing this at least 10 years old, or maybe more than that. I don't know. It's when he's definitely younger. I think still an adult, but still younger. But in the photo that Kratz posted, he said, "Well, if this is me," or something to that name, I'd have to find the exact tweet that he said. "Well, if this is me, this is you, something of that nature. Or you put up a picture of me. Here's one of you, something like that. So it was like he's admitting that was him at the party. I'll find it, send it to you.
Well, with Kratz, you never know if he's trying to shut someone up or if he's trying to get attention or publicity. He's got so many toxic traits. It's hard to know what part of what's being fed with that, right?
Henbury pretty well laid it out there. Person X posted a photo of a guy watching the table dance. Kratz said to Person X, if you're going to post a photo of me, then I'm going to post a photo of you. That's basically what it was.
Wow. That's pretty much
not denying it.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much saying you doxed me, so I'm going to dox you. That's what that sounds like.
That's the way I took it. So anyway, okay. So we've been a couple hours. We were on over 4 hours the other night. I never intended that, but it was a great conversation.
Yes, it was.
And good to talk to everyone. But I'm not going to do that tonight. We're going to unless you guys got something else to say. I'm going to scoot us out of here because I'm getting hungry, and I'm sure other people are getting hungry and tired or thirsty or whatever. Obviously, any questions or whatever that we didn't cover, you have comments, anyone out there in the live chat, you can certainly comment after the video populates. It won't take it long. You can leave your comments. I will make this document available after we're done here. It'll be in that folder that's in the description. It's also on the website now, so you can find it there as well.
And are we going to continue to we'll continue to share documents on this file?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as they become available, somebody, one of these defendants, sends in their whatever within the next couple of weeks. Well, this was filed on the 20th, so if it's 30 days, where are we at here? We're the 5th right now, so
yeah, about halfway there.
Well, there's basically 15 days left for these people to reply. So, and we're also going to start looking into the Karen Reed case. I don't know that I'll present anything tomorrow. I probably won't. There's a lot of information, and I'm trying to make a decision on where to begin. I think I've pretty much decided. So, putting some things together for presentation to get us off on the right foot, and then we'll continue on after that. So, Jay, do you have anything to add before we jump out of the live here?
No, I'm quite interested really in what's going to come of the next events.
Same here, man. Absolutely.
Well,
I appreciate the excellent reading, Jay, and coming in and help participate.
Yeah.
Sunshine, anything you'd like to add before we jump ship?
For a case that's open and shut, the door continues to swing. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean,
the case that keeps on giving.
That's right, and it's quite interesting that they want us to not. They want us to believe he's guilty, to leave the case alone and all that. But yet behind the scenes, all the people involved are like fighting amongst each other, looking for money, looking for, no one's satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't believe, well, you probably would, Christina, because I'm sure you've had the same people in the live you wouldn't believe the number of people, guilters, that have just told me, you just need to stop. You need to, you need to stop talking about it. Stop, asking for records and documents, blah, 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 without any real reason why. Just, just quit. It's done. Just stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, I'm not done. If
No.
you're done, hey, move on. Go to another case.
They're
or
not
get involved.
done either.
Apparently not.
Mm-mm.
Exactly.
And that's if that's not the pot calling the kettle black, I don't know what it is.
That's the big rub. Well, if you're done, this person talking to me sounds like you're done. Why do you care what I do?
Yeah. Why are you still here? Why don't you go find another case where you believe? Because like, why bother? And I think we all know why, because they've got some sort of investment into this case, whether it be emotional or
financial
or personal. Like, their freedom's on the line if the truth's exposed. We just
or they know.
Or
they're close to someone that could face that could have some consequences.
Yep.
Yeah, Henbury, I've hit a brick wall with Calumet County and the DOJ. I mean, an absolute block wall, reinforced with rebar and whatever else behind it. It's just so stupid. It's crazy. Anyway, want to thank everyone for jumping in and looking at this. The document will be available here in a few minutes. If you want your own copy, I'll make sure it's unrestricted in that folder. And until next time, something comes up this week and document becomes available as they come in. Somebody replies to this. Yeah, we're going to jump in live and probably read it out. It's a little more difficult to handle two different cases. I talked about the Karen Reed thing, but that's not going to affect this part or anything that happens in the Avery case. We'll just do what we got to do. So with that said, thank everybody in the live chat. Again, thanks Jay and Christina. And I'm going to tell you all, this has been a Foul Play production, and we'll see you soon.